talking about what's not working to progress you towards your personal and professional business goals, right? Or general goals, right? Whether it be by an inch or a mile. So when we look at what's not working, then it's time to mix it up, right? And find a new ingredient mixture. And then when you find kind of, so what I've learned to do, to your question, what I've learned to do and overcome, things I've had to deal with is when, I do that. And then when I find the solution that works, I stick with it, and then I build good habits on that, right? So
good day, Unleashers. Today I've got a very special guest on my podcast / YouTube channel. His name is Claxton, and he is an AI robotics entrepreneur. He's a public speaker, an author, an ex-Marine veteran, and also a board advisor. Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Can you tell people a little bit about you and where you're from?
Yeah. So the long and the short is, when I graduated high school in 2000, I needed something to do, and I didn't feel like I was ready for college. So I decided that I was going to join the Marine Corps, and it was quite an interesting story from then up until now. I spent 10 years on active duty with the Marine Corps and did a number of deployments overseas, and I left the Marine Corps in 2010. I've been in technology ever since. I've done everything from headhunting on 100% commission to ERP software project management. I've worked at marketing firms. And then for the last 5 years, I've been a technology entrepreneur, which have led me to many different countries across the world, and working in AI and robotics and IoT, and leading multiple business efforts and a few different companies where I'm currently a shareholder, a board advisor, or a partner of some sort. So right now, the major focus for me is AI and robotics, and how we can use AI and robotics to offer sustainability and advancement and better humanity to the global populations.
That's awesome. So like you were saying now that, obviously it's been a transition to get to where you come from. So how did the AI come about? How did you get into specifically that niche? Because that's very niche, right? To get into that.
Well, I think AI is a really good industry to be in because, I think at any time that you look at, building a business or a career, you want something that's got a long runway, right? And I think AI does have a long runway. I think that there's going to be a lot of development in AI for many years to come. And I think that it is very AI is still in the baby stages. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there because of that. And being in technology, I started out not knowing much about, even what a Java programmer was or, what the different programming languages were. I didn't know those very basic things. But, after learning those by, kind of being in the trenches and learning from mentors and learning from, different experiences, setbacks and failures and so forth, and taking all that, I kind of was given that essentially was kind of like a guiding light for me to know where do I want to be, and what's the most viable option for me where I can have the most impact. And I really think it is in AI and robotics, and I think those two areas are really going to touch our lives in more ways than one here, in present day and in the coming decades.
I really love that. I love that you said that, you want to make an impact. People that know me on my show, and I do actually have a marketing agency, and I do coach people, small businesses, how to become good marketers in their own business if they can't afford the expensive stuff. And I really focus on impact-driven entrepreneurs. That's my brand. It's like I really want to work with impact-driven entrepreneurs. So hearing that you say that you want to make an impact, I'm very intrigued by that. What drives you to make an impact in the world?
It's interesting. I just talked about this not too long ago to one of my colleagues. But I think it started with, just learning about, I was 18 when I joined the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps is always about, everyone else but you, right? It's about, serving your country, the man or the woman to the left or to the right of you. And it's really about putting everyone else first and living that lifestyle, and then, kind of being indoctrinated and kind of into that way of thinking. It built a set of core values within me. But when I left the Marine Corps, I really had to kind of find a way to continue that. And so I realized that there are more problems in this world than there are solutions. And I feel like we really need to start kind of delivering education and technology, and we really need to bring business opportunity, not just business opportunity, but educational opportunity, and just really a holistic kind of set of opportunities that maybe we have in first world countries like America and so forth. But we need to bring that to the underserved communities and underserved markets, brick and mortar markets that might be lagging behind and so forth. And we need to kind of essentially, kind of move away from the monopoly models, right? Yes. And I think if we do that, and we focus on, how can we do that in such a way that is sustainable over a long period of time, but also focuses on, how do we kind of deliver that in humane ways, right? And civilized ways, not just all about making a dollar. I think that comes when you deliver value, if you put value first. And then last but not least, how can we do that and decrease our dependence on non-renewable resources? And I think bringing all those together, decreasing dependence on non-renewable resources, doing business in humane, more civilized ways than perhaps we have done in the past. And then again, delivering that in ways that are building up underserved markets, or different areas of business or society that are perhaps overlooked from time to time. And I think if we do that, we can make a greater impact as a global population and as micro communities.
Gosh, that's amazing. That is so inspiring. And yes, you guys must listen to this, because that is the best way to run a business, is to think of other people first and putting, solving the problems and driving with value instead of money. It's so important. So Paul, can we go a little bit into the exact AI things that you're doing? Because I mean, that's a big field in itself, right? And you said you had mentors and you learned how to do this. So a lot of people like me, myself, I am a complete and outer tech weenie. If I hear technology, I kind of like, I don't know how to do this. Have you had that in the beginning? Like you just think you couldn't do this and you carried on doing it anyway, and you dived into this AI world? Was this something that you struggled to do in the beginning and you just kept pushing because you believed it could be an impact?
Yeah, so I think, what I've done is I've kind of, I'm more on the operational side of AI. So I've kind of stood on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, in terms of, my business endeavors and companies that I'm involved with, as I said before, as a partner or a shareholder of some sort. Yes. So I've kind of stood on the shoulders of giants or geniuses, so to speak. Yeah. But I really believe from a right brain standpoint of view, I really believe that in terms of AI, I think that it's the things that we generally think of as we think of them passively or subconsciously, which means that we don't really think about them, right? But those things are going to have some sort of AI or technology built into them. And so virtually everything that you look at, slowly but surely, more things that you use on a day-to-day basis, even consumer products like this pen, for example,
Mm-hmm.
will have some sort of data collection point that some sort of hardware in it
Yeah.
that reverts back to a data collection point that essentially tells you, hey, you're 25% low on ink. You know, it's only a couple more pages till you run out of ink, so to speak, right? Because how many times have we been writing and we've ran out of ink or something like that, right? So it's just different things like that that, you know, where AI has created a lot of opportunity, and the things that you use from day to day that you don't even think about are going to be things that we think about more and more. And because we're thinking about them, out of that is going to evolve more entrepreneurship, more opportunity, and more opportunity to solve problems in the world, because they will be on the top of our mind. And see, I believe that the reason why we do have so many challenges and problems with no solutions is because we don't think about these things constantly, right? For example, there's a pollution problem, or there's a water shortage. We don't know what we're going to do when the water runs out. There is a water shortage even in many countries that don't have the money to manufacture water, right? And so in America, or in places maybe like New Zealand, we don't think about those things because even though the air is polluted, we can still breathe. But what happens when the air is so polluted that we can't breathe? See, then it becomes top of mind. Then we start working to solve it with a heavier hand, right?
Yeah, so true.
Yep. So I think AI and robotics can do a lot there.
Yeah. So it can change the way that we live in an indirect way that we don't even think it's possible.
Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah. That's pretty cool, actually. Well, what has been your biggest struggle in entrepreneurship?
My biggest struggle in entrepreneurship has been, you know, how do I think more creatively? I do believe that, you know, as an entrepreneur, your goal is, once again, you know, everybody gets into entrepreneurship, hopefully not just to make money, but hopefully to create a great product or a service that's going to solve some make some real world impact, right? Yes. And so in order to do that, you constantly have to be thinking creatively. We go back to Thomas Edison. It took him over 1,000 different tries to create the light bulb that really it had demonstrable effect for mankind globally, right? What would we do without the light bulb? We'd still be burning candles. I mean, you know, just think about what that's done for us, right? And so in order to do that, he had to constantly be thinking creatively. So, you know, when you think about what's not working, I'm not talking about if you're an entrepreneur, what's not working in terms of I'm not making the kind of money I want to make, or I'm not driving the kind of car or Ferrari I want to drive. Talking about what's not working to progress you towards your personal and professional business goals, right? Or general goals, right? Whether it be by an inch or a mile. So when we look at what's not working, then it's time to mix it up, right? And find a new ingredient mixture. And then when you find kind of, you know, so what I've learned to do, to your question, what I've learned to do and overcome, you know, things that I've had to deal with is when, you know, I do that. And then when I find the solution that works, I stick with it, and then I build good habits on that, right? So it's good habits on what is working.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
I love the fact that you talked about goals a little bit there too. You can see I've got a big hashtag goals behind me. There's a reason for that, because I always ask the goal question.
Oh.
And also, I do, like I mentioned, I have students, and you know, goals is a big part of what we do every week. How do you set goals?
Well, the first thing is I love that you have that goals sign behind you. I actually just made a post on LinkedIn the other day, but goals to me stands for get over all losses, right? And so, yep, that's what goals stands for, is get over all losses. You know, and I think that goals, if you have real potent goals, so to speak, I really think that if you focus on them and they're pure, they have to be pure. You know, it can't be a goal like, oh, I want to get a Ferrari. Like, everybody wants to get a Ferrari, but what happens when they don't make Ferraris anymore? Then what happens to that goal, right? So it has to be intrinsic. It has to be pure. So, I think, and back to your question, like setting goals, right?
Mhm.
Right. Like how do I go about that?
Yes.
I think that circles back to, my philosophy that, goals have to be, they almost have to be immortal, in terms of, um, you know, anything could change, around you in
Mhm.
terms of your environment.
Mhm.
Uh, different things could change you, bad things, good things could happen. You could
Mhm.
lose, maybe, your house forecloses or
Mhm.
something, or maybe you win the lottery. But at the end of the day, your goals still should not change, right? And so your goal can't really be to get a Ferrari, because if you win the lottery, you'll be able to buy that Ferrari. But
Mhm.
like, then what happens, right? Then what do
Mhm.
you do with your life, right? And so I really think that goals have to be, they can't be
Mhm.
dependent, or interdependent on
Mhm.
anything extrinsic. Uh, they have to be very intangible, and so goals really have to be based on a set of values, right?
Yes.
Um, you know, and my goal has been to, how can I improve people's lives? How can I, pay my knowledge for it, or my experiences for it? Which is one reason why I do these interviews,
Mhm.
because it's an opportunity for me, to get on the stand, and for me to, share what I've learned, and
That's so
that is
awesome.
my goal. My goal out of this is not, it's not publicity, because that comes and goes, but if I can share some experiences that I've had
Yes.
and to the listeners here, and then they can
Mm.
take that and remember it for the rest of their life. That is
That's
my goal.
That's so awesome. That is really amazing. And that's exactly why I created this podcast, is exactly for that. And I've always said I'll
Yep.
never monetize this podcast because it's not about that for me. It's about, sharing the value. Do you have a set of blueprint that you set your goals? Do you work on like 12 months, 9 months, 6 months? Do you have like a set way that you set your goals?
Interesting. So I believe that that's very interesting you asked that. So I wrote a letter to myself in May. It was on May 18th of, and I keep it in my notebook here, May 18th of 2018. And the letter is about how I felt at that time, and what my greatest fears, my greatest fears and concerns were, and what my greatest struggles are that I feel that I have to deal with throughout my life. And what I wanted to know is that, I'm I'm supposed to keep that letter throughout my life, right? And so when I turn 75, I want to be able to read that letter and know if I dealt with those fears and I came through those struggles accordingly based on how I felt at that point in
Yes.
time. So it, kind of, going back to your question in terms of, in terms of kind of like, um, how can I word this? In terms of like, kind of, bringing all that together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important to, kind of, know yourself. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different things that you can do, whether it's meditation or writing a letter to yourself, or something along those lines. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, uh, either like kind of figuring out what your why is, so to speak,
Yes.
and then, yeah, figuring out what your why is,
Mm.
and why you're doing what you're doing, and just letting yourself,
Mm.
um, just kind of pull through life like that, right?
Mm.
Because everything is going to change from one day to the next.
Mm.
No day is ever the same. It's like the water in a river, right? The water is
Mm.
never the same, so life's kind of ever flowing.
Yeah.
And with that being said, you kind of have to let the river of life just kind of like take you,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, down the stream, right? But
Yes.
at the end of the day, you should ultimately know kind of, where you're headed. You should have, um, you know those devices to kind of keep you afloat, and kind
Yes.
of guide you through that river, so to speak. So that is what I do. I do a lot of self introspection.
Mhm.
and reflection, and and I just keep it real with myself at the end of the day.
Yeah. And it
Yep,
is, it's about keeping your goals real, right? It's about knowing the deeper
exactly.
why, the deeper why. So are you very, I'm assuming, Paul, that you are very familiar with your deeper why, because a lot of times people are like, I want to make money because I don't want to be broke, or I want to make money because of this and that. But sometimes to dive into your deeper why, this is the thing that actually drives you, every day. What is your deeper why in life?
So I think, my deeper why in life is, so I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Um, I've experienced a lot in terms of, and a lot in my life,
Mm-hmm.
from one extreme to the other in terms of life and death. But if you think about, so there's over 100 billion people that have ever lived on the face of the earth. And if you think about all those people, how many do we remember? 98% of them we don't remember, but a few we do. We remember the Rockefellers, we remember Thomas Edison, we remember Benjamin Franklin, because those people did something.
Impact.
Those people did something unique and memorable with their life, but most people don't get remembered because they just kind of,
Yes.
most people are followers, quite honestly, and that's okay. I mean, if that, there's nothing wrong with that,
Yes.
but if you want to be remembered, I think at the end of the day, if you want to set a legacy that's going to last, generations, or
Yeah.
and then you kind of got to work to do that every day. And yeah, I think it is possible. I think anything's possible, but you really got to work at it every day.
Yes.
And the reason why I say that is because, you know, to find a deeper, like, universal kind of meaning in
Yes.
life, the only thing that is real is life and death. Everything else is kind of like an alternate reality happening all at the same time, right? So is it really real? It's almost like if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a noise or does it make a sound, right? So those are like the alternate realities that are going on. There's, I'm in Ireland, but there's 350 million people in America that have all these different things happening at the same time, right? When I'm here with you, but I'll never know about those things, right? And so if you want to make things real, like if you want to really have deep, true meaning in your life, do something crazy. Like, in my opinion, just do something crazy. And then when you think you've done something crazy, do something crazier. That's why they say entrepreneurs are crazy. If you really, really want to do something, and be remembered for it, do something crazy. I'll give you an example. Dennis Rodman, he wasn't the best basketball player. He was certainly the best rebounder in NBA. But you know what? Nobody remembers Dennis Rodman for his rebounds. Everybody remembers Dennis Rodman because he's that crazy dude that walked on the basketball court and he had the colored hair and he was always doing something. That's what people remember Dennis Rodman for. And so, if you don't be afraid of what other people think, that's where you get the true meaning out of life. Michael Jordan is another example. He would always play ball with his tongue sticking out, and maybe people thought that was stupid at first. What is this guy, like what is he trying to imitate, some kind of animal or something? But at the end of the day, that became his signature, and then people kind of admired him for it, like, wow, that must help him fly better or something, so at the end of the day, go with what you believe in, whether you think it's dumb or somebody else thinks it's dumb. But at the end of the day, people are going to find meaning in that if you are consistent with it, if you stick with it, if you believe in it, and if you see true meaning in what you believe in, then other people believe it, and then they'll see true meaning in it. And that's the meaning, that's how you find deeper meaning, in my opinion.
I love that. That is amazing.
Yep.
Paul, you are inspiration through and through and on this show. This show is about inspiring entrepreneurs to either start a business, or also if they're stuck, maybe they've had a few failures and they're just kind of not sure if they want to carry on. So we do have quite a chunk of listeners that is listening to the show that is getting inspired by entrepreneurs like yourselves. What advice would you have for somebody that is sitting on that fence and they're like either stuck or they haven't really started? What advice would you have for somebody like that?
Well, I would say, the first thing I would say the first, way to get unstuck, right? It's kind of like, I remember when I was a kid and I would just tear up my room. I'd throw my toys all over the place, and have a good time with my friends and everything. But when the party was over, my mom would say, "Go clean up your room." And I go into the room and it looked like a junkyard. Like, I was like, okay, where do I start? Like, you know, but at the end of the day, you got to start somewhere, right? And it's all about finding a place for those things that are out of place or that you feel are out of place, right? It's like I just moved into a new condo a couple weeks ago, and when we got here, everything was just all over. There was stuff all over the living room. I couldn't find. I was losing my mind because I like to order, and I couldn't find my iPhone cords. It was just like I actually bought extra iPhone cords, and then literally after I had everything put away, like a week later, I go to look in the trash can, and there's iPhone cords in the trash can. I'm like, what are my iPhone cords doing in the trash can? I'm like, surely all these cords work. Sure enough, they do. But see, when we were moving, we threw our iPhone cords in the trash can because we need a container, and so the trash can will work, right? But the point to that is that everything has a place. And so if you're stuck, start finding a place for the stuff that seems out of order. That's number one. Number two, when you get unstuck, try to eliminate your options. Because, if you have too many options, for example, if I got iPhone cords, everything has a place, right? My iPhone cords are always in 1, 2, or 3 places, right? They're not in and they're plugged in the sockets, right? Ready to go. Anytime I need to charge my phone, I know I can go to 3 to 4, maybe 5 places in my house where there are outlets, and the cords are already ready to go. I don't have to look for a cord. They're not in like 50 different drawers. See, if my iPhone cords were in like, all these different drawers, I'd be running around the house like a wild dog, and so that is the thing. If you want to get unstuck, find a place for the stuff in your life that seems out of place and then keep it there. And then next, start eliminating your options. Simplicity is sophistication.
Yes. I love that. Unleashes, that is like the best advice that I've heard in a long time.
Yep.
From Paul. It is really good to find. And it's very interesting that you say that, Paul, because just the other day I spoke to a friend of mine. We haven't caught up for a while, and we caught up probably about 3 days ago, and we talked about alignment and, finding your like this, he was talking about there's the spirit of, if you're not supposed to do this thing in entrepreneurship and the spirit doesn't align with you, because we're all like floating around on earth in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And if you're not supposed to do this thing and you're not in alignment, it's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter how much you try and push and do something. And that's why there's so many entrepreneurs struggling for years doing this thing that it just never picks up, because it's just not what they're supposed to do. It's just not in their alignment. I love that.
It's all about momentum. I mean, again, I'll go back to the iCord thing. If I have to walk around my house spending 15, 20 minutes looking for an iPhone cord when I'm supposed to be starting my workday,
exactly,
that's 15 to 20 minutes. See, I'm not starting my day right there, and so it's all about momentum and keeping, you want to keep momentum in kind of every area of your life, and you kind of want to keep that order and in that way your mind has room to think, right? And another thing I'll bring to you is that it's also all about it's not just about physical things like iPhone cords, but it is certainly about order in other parts of your life too. Like I've had to get things out of my life that had no place in my life, and that could have been people, could have been jobs, relationships. I had to get them out of my life. And the other thing is that, if I do have people that are supposed to be in my life, but maybe, things aren't right with them, then I got to get things right with them, or at least I got to get that settled in my mind. I got to find a place for that in my mind, I've
Yeah.
had to do that a lot over the years. So, again, and then thirdly, so that's the emotional side, and the emotional, mental, and then the physical side. The reason why I'm up at, after 11 p.m. here. But it's because I have the physical energy. I could do this at 3 a.m. if I had to, but I have the physical energy to do this, right? And that is because I keep up with my health. I go to the gym regularly. I do that kind of stuff. So, I think those things are important to not even ever getting stuck in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I get what you're saying with the fitness thing, because I've recently started to get into fitness, probably this last couple of months now, because I kind of went off of the rails, because you just, and I know this is a struggle in entrepreneurship, because you get so focused in what you're building that you forget about looking after yourself. And I have a mentor, and we went through this thing, and I'm getting back onto the health wagon. And it's been amazing the last 3 months, just the clarity that you have, right? When you're fit and you're healthy, and it's just the clarity in your business is just absolutely amazing. It's very true what you're saying. I like that.
It doesn't have to be painful. I think most people look at fitness as something that's going to be like, it's going to be like very painful and like, but it can be very enjoyable too.
Exactly.
So, find a physical activity that gets you sweating, and I promise you, like, you're going to feel great.
Exactly. I've joined a challenge called the Conqueror. I don't know if you heard about it, Paul. So basically you do virtual things, because now in New Zealand, it's really cold. It's miserable. It's raining. It's just winter. Like, it's really, for the next 3 months, it's just not really outside running weather and things like that. So there's this thing called the Conqueror, and you get like physical medals. So you join, you pay like, I think I paid like $150 or something like that, but it's like stupid cheap. And you actually get a physical medal that they send you once you completed a certain amount of kilometers on the challenges. So I'm in like a group of girls, and we're doing this together, and it's so cool because it's that drive, right? It's just that finding that something that inspires you to just keep helping. Yeah. It's little
For
things,
sure.
little things.
Well,
Last question.
The world's definitely an interesting place, and I will say, there's a lot to know and find out, and I'll also say, continue, again with getting unstuck. I know this is a lot about getting unstuck and everything, but just continue to investigate the world. Don't live in a cocoon. I've been living in Ireland. I've lived in Mexico for 4 months, about a year ago. Just travel the world, get to know the world, educate yourself in that kind of way, and get those experiences, get that informal education. And it's really going to open your eyes to new things, because, cultures are built to, societies are built to make people think a certain way. That's why the United States has a totally different way of life than North Korea or China, right?
So
because those are cultures built to make people think a certain way. Correct. It's like we eat cows and pigs in the US, and unfortunately they eat dogs and cats in China, and it's just like, but why is that? And it's because they build these cultures to get people to think a certain way. And so when you get used to thinking a certain way, you also get stuck sometimes, right? So go travel the world, open up your mind, and think, just don't be afraid to try new stuff, basically.
Exactly. How many countries have you lived in, Paul?
Jeez, I've been to Australia. Haven't lived there, but I've only lived in, technically I was stationed in Iraq for over a year, so technically I lived there.
Yeah.
But I lived in Mexico, Ireland, and then obviously the US, but I've been to many more countries than that.
So how many have you traveled then, with just traveling?
Oh, Australia, Switzerland, Germany, Kuwait, Ireland, the UK, Mexico, Canada, obviously the US.
Yes.
Am I missing anything?
You're missing New Zealand. You have to come to New Zealand, Paul. That's your next one.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go. I actually have a fascination with islands, so I think New Zealand would be a pretty cool place to go to.
Yeah, it really, really is. And there's lots of, like, if you make a whole thing out of it, there's lots of islands around New Zealand that is really awesome to go to. Like there's one called Rarotonga, which is really amazing. It's this tiny little island, but it's just so beautiful and tropical. And it's like 3 hours flight from New Zealand. So it's, or 3.5 hours. So it's like, if you do something like that, you must do all of the little islands around. It's so beautiful.
Wow.
Mm. That would be really cool. Paul, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time. Do
It
you have
has, yeah.
anything else that you want to add to the audience before we finish this interview?
No, I will just say live long and prosper. And
Yes.
the other thing is too, I've given some advice and suggestions here on the interview, but that's up to you to decide what to keep and what to throw away. Because not all advice is, even my advice, not all advice is good advice. So.
Well, I think it has been amazing. I think your advice has been proper, sound, and it's just been very inspirational. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And I know it's late by you, so even more so I do appreciate your time and speaking to the audience and inspiring them. That's really amazing of you. So thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate you.
Yep. Thank you.
Cheers.